From the earliest age, his father, former NBA player Joe Jellybean Bryant, had sought to establish in his son a supreme confidence. Above all, it remained his trademark. That impenetrable, unshakeable self-belief was the one trait where Bryant clearly outranked his contemporaries, said psychologist George Mumford, who had worked extensively with both Jordan and Bryant. It puts him in his own category, Mumford would say. So let's start off. We're going to talk about element number one, which was self-belief. And there were three immediate things that stood out to me with this self-belief. And so first off, the biography told us this. Since his startling emergence into the public spotlight as a teen in 1996, Bryant has stood before the public as a bright young man, polite and polished in so many ways, yet possessive, and this bit is key, yet possessive of an otherworldly confidence that is off-putting to nearly everyone who meets him, leaving some on occasions to doubt even his fundamental sanity. So this first point is almost like a first lesson for us, because if you want to get to the very top of any industry, whether you're an athlete or, an entrepreneur, it's almost like you really do need this huge level of self-belief, because things are going to knock that confidence that you have, knock that self-belief. And, what I've seen in so many champions, of course, Kobe's not the first champion that I've studied. They work relentlessly throughout their childhood, their teen years, on building their self-belief. And it is just quite literally something that Kobe was building, from the time he was 4 or 5 years old. And his father was a big part of this, what we're going to talk about in a moment. And actually, I wrote down this quote from Tom Brady. I mean, it's so simple, but so powerful. He said, "If you don't believe in yourself, why is anyone else going to believe in you?" I mean, it's so simple, but, some of my favorite things, some of the things that stick with me for a long time are the most simple. Now, second, when it comes to this self-belief, I want to tell you about this interview that Kobe did with Big Shaq. So both players had retired. And they sat down, they discussed many things, but there was this one moment that gives us an unbelievable indication of this self-belief that Kobe had. He had this superstar mindset, let's put it this way. But before we get to that, just in case you don't know Big Shaq, I want to describe him for you, because he was 325 pounds, 7'1". I mean, he was a monster. And also, he had just been traded from the Orlando Magic to the Lakers for a record $120 million. So, I mean, not only was this guy intimidating, he was basically the face of the NBA, but he was also the sort of epitome of confidence. And so, to think that this 17-year-old rookie, so, Kobe at that point was 6'6", and probably only 180 pounds soaking wet. And yet he had the confidence to go up to Shaq and say this. So in the interview, Shaq said to Kobe, "Do you remember what you told me on the first day that we met at the Forum?" So Kobe kind of smiles and nods, and Shaq continues, "You told me you were going to be one of the greatest players ever." And Kobe says with a grin, "I don't remember saying that, but it sounds like something I would say." I mean, at 17, you got the audacity to say this to the $120 million man. And so I think the lesson that I took away from this is, for any one of us, you've got to believe in yourself before anybody else does. So saying that, I want to talk about this observation that Tim Grover gave us in his book Winning about Jordan and Kobe. And so he said this: "Over the years, I've thought a lot about what made each one of them special. No question, each had immeasurable traits, but above all, they had this in common. They each possessed an unshakable confidence in themselves," and it's these last three words, "that never wavered." That never wavered. And I think I just cannot underscore how important in basically almost every successful person I've been around or that I've studied, they all have this crazy level of self-belief. It's very rare to see someone who doesn't have it. And so I want to build on how Kobe got this, how he built it in his life and where it came from. So I want to take us back to the biography. This paragraph gives us a great clue, a great indication. It says, the formation of that self-belief was due in part to the efforts of his father, Joe Jellybean Bryant, who carefully and continuously stoked his son's confidence, the father having watched his own promising career break apart in the swirling cross currents of the 1970s NBA. And then to fill in some of the gaps, the book actually used this powerful phrase that really stood out to me to describe Joe Bryant's career. It said, "Never the man," saying it was a phrase that would haunt Joe Bryant's career and an idea, and this is big, and an idea that would fuel his son to do just the opposite. You know, Kobe was the opposite. He was focused. He was disciplined. He had this self-belief. Exactly what we heard in the introduction. His philosophy was the opposite. I just want to be the man, he would say time and time again. And the book went on to say, Kobe's father would later explain that he rued his own lack of confidence and partly blamed that for his failings. He seemed determined that his son would have none of this weakness. And I mean, that's exactly correct. Kobe wouldn't have any of this weakness. And that is why we're spending time on this self-belief, because I just think it is so vitally important in every champion that I've read about. And so I wanted to just share a couple of paragraphs. I wouldn't be doing the biography justice if I didn't share these with you. So first off, it said, since a young age, when he rode on bus trips with his father's second-tier Italian league team, we'll talk about Italy in a moment, and he promised the old man and another of his father's teammates that he was going to be far better than either one of them. Bryant's existence, this is a tremendous line, Bryant's existence has been an almost singular, inhuman pursuit of greatness. I mean, how can you not love a line like that? Singular, inhuman pursuit of greatness. And then it said, from his teenage years, Kobe Bryant has been shockingly bold in his prediction that he's going to make himself into one of the greatest basketball players ever. I mean, exactly what he said to Shaq. At every turn, his declarations of future greatness have been met with head shaking and raised eyebrows, because such dreams are ludicrous, impossible to fulfill. Kobe's crazy, the people around him concluded time and time again with a laugh. Yet now here he is, well on the path to wealth and fame that his great-grandmother once prophesied for someone in the clan, in the Bryant clan. But reading about all these sections, it made me actually think, who's the most confident athlete I've ever come across? And my mind immediately went to my father's favorite athlete. That was Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali burst onto the scene in the 1960s when he won an Olympic gold medal. But actually, it wasn't until 64 that he really started to shake the world, if you like, when he defeated Sonny Liston and went on to become the world heavyweight champion. But what I loved about Muhammad Ali was actually the trash talk, the poems, the way he would speak to the press, and he was almost like Apollo Creed. I mean, obviously Apollo Creed almost played a version of him in Rocky. The way he would have these rhymes and talk about how he's going to knock his opponent out in the second round or whatever. But actually the rhyme that I really wanted to share with you, the rhyme that came to my thinking was this, when he said these words. He said, I've wrestled with alligators. I've tussled with a whale. I've handcuffed lightning and thrown thunder in jail. You know I'm bad. Just last week, I murdered a rock, injured a stone, hospitalized a brick. I'm so mean, I make medicine sick. I mean, how can you not love him? And the reason I share almost this comparison, I mean, Kobe was a lot quieter, especially with the press, but he had this underlying, deep-seated self-belief. And so I think the conclusion of all of this, learn everything possible, learn everything you can about how to develop your own level of self-belief, because it's going to be something that you're going to have to rely on. And what I also love is this little bit that I'm going to share with you from Kobe's coach, the way they were also preparing his mentality to go out there and be the MVP. And so his coach told him this from day one. As a freshman, you're amongst a pool of 100. However, you know that 50 of those won't work hard, or 50 of those won't be coachable, or they'll discover drugs or discover girls. And so the pool of potential great players will halve itself every year. This is brilliant for your mentality. 100 becomes 50, 50 becomes 25, 25 becomes 10, and 10 becomes 5. And what was amazing about Kobe to me, he had this maniacal work ethic where he wouldn't allow distractions to get in the way of his goals and his dreams and, what he wanted to accomplish. And so Downer, the coach, said from that junior to senior year, he kind of made the jump from like 20 to 5. And he said he used to get furious at me when I needled him and told him that somebody was better than him. And so I just love that he was being pushed in the right way from his coach. Believe me, if you're not being pushed in the right way as well, if you don't have the right people around you, you will not achieve your potential. Coaches, in my opinion, are massively important in the story of these champions.